So you want to build Gunpla? First, we need to define what Gunpla is in the first place. Well, it comes from Gundam, which is a fictional universe, a Japanese military fiction media that centers around giant robots or mecha with the name Gundam. You can get these things in a lot of places. So I usually buy mine online. The last two I bought, the only two I've ever made, I've gotten online from Amazon. Well, you can also get it from eBay or any online store such as USA Gundam Store online, or you can also find it in person in a lot of stores. In the Glendale Galleria, there's a store called Tokyo where you can get some. There's a bunch in Little Tokyo, or you can just find it in hobby stores in the first place. There are also many types of Gundams, and they have little markings about what grade they are, like over here. This one's a high grade, and for beginners, I wholly recommend high grades because they're easier to build, they're simple and straightforward, and they won't take too long either. They're also more affordable than the other ones. I also warn you not to get figures. Figures are already built. Specifically get kits, since those are the ones that you can actually build. There's a big grading scale for the Gunpla that you can actually get. So for example, the one that I have right now, which is a high grade, they are usually smaller, maybe like 5 to 6 inches, and there's a wide range of them. And from there, the size increases, the quality and detail also increases. From bottom to top, it goes from high grade to real grade, master grade, and perfect grade. When it comes to which one to actually get, that's entirely up to you. Whether you like the ones that are more rounded in shape, whether you like the white color palette or the black color palette, that's entirely up to you. For this one, I will be making Gundam Sandrock. It's a white and yellow color palette with green eyes, and I like it because it has nice swords. For the tools that you actually need, it's just one. Nippers. You're gonna only need nippers, and I'll show you why later. Other tools that you can get, I actually bought like a little toolkit online to help me in this. So you can get a hobby knife, or as a lot of people know, X-Acto knives. Tweezers to help put on the stickers. I have a buffer, and there's also a file and a metal file. And I'll show you why all of these tools are needed. I also have a microfiber cloth, which is also going to be needed for what I'm doing at the very least, which is basically just detailing. So when you actually start to unbox this thing, it might look really confusing. Let's jump to that. Well, now that you can finally have it, you can just go on unboxing it. Well, at first sight, it looks very overwhelming. Alright, so this is where like everything goes wrong because the plastic covering the runners is really loud and you can't hear anything I'm saying. So I'm gonna continue with a voiceover. So you're gonna want to take the plastic runners out of the box, and the manual should be somewhere in the box. Then right after, you need to get an empty table and a big table if you're working with something big, and put the runners down in alphabetical order. Sometimes there are two runners with the same letter, such as B1 and B2, but that just means that they're duplicates or pairs. I usually like to pair them together. After that, you're gonna wanna take a quick look at the manual, and in the first page, there's usually a list of the types of runners you should have, so just make sure that you have everything on there. So when you take a look at the manual, you see that there are a bunch of steps. So for example, this A11 piece needs to get connected with these PC2 pieces. So that means you're gonna have to get the A runner and find number 11 and take that one out. There are different markers, so this one means a sticker, and it comes in this paper right over here. Also has numbers. Looking very carefully at the manual is super important because it tells you directions. When you actually begin cutting off the pieces from the runners, you're gonna wanna cut away from the actual piece. So you see that I'm cutting a little bit away from it, so there's still some bit of the piece at the end. And with that, I took an X-Acto knife and I started chipping away at the piece. So over here I have 3 different files. This black one is the lowest grit that I have, and I know it's the lowest grit because when I touch it, it's the roughest one. And from there, the grit only increases. So the second one that I pull up over here is my second lowest grit, and this buffer contains the higher grit ones. And throughout the video you can barely see, but I primarily use this buffer because with Gunpla you have to be super careful since the plastic is soft and can be easily damaged, meaning that you could have some gnarly scratches on your Gunpla that you really don't want to show. Over here you can see that I start working on the piece until it becomes really smooth and polished, and I'm actually working on this one for a little while even though it's not going to show in the end result. You don't have to polish all of the pieces, this one is just for example, so just polish the ones that you think will show up. And you can look at the previews from the manual too. I was being a bit lazy and I only polished some of them, but especially with the white pieces, you can get away with not polishing it all the way. So once you get the finished product, it's a smooth piece. So now I'm starting to work on the body, which is the first part, and you see that the manual is always right next to me. I'm always using my nippers. I have the buffers out to sand and my X-Acto knife. So when you're finished with your first piece, it should come out exactly as the picture shows it. And you can see in the quick 360 over here that everything looks pretty much fine. I apologize for the weird angle. It's super low, but every time I'm building, I have such a serious look on my face. And also, the stand I was using was not cooperating too much. After that, you just continue following the manual, and I stress that you take your time and be as perfect as possible. See, there are arrows in the instructions that tell you where stuff should go, and there are clear pictures. I also recommend that you take a very close look at each of the pieces to make sure that it goes in the right direction. Sometimes there are also steps, so it tells you to do this piece first and then this piece second, so make sure to follow that. And I stress perfection because it's really hard to get the pieces out sometimes. And with my first build, I actually tore some of the plastic because I wasn't being careful. So save yourself some pain and broken fingers, and just be super careful while you're building. You can see over at this part, I'm actually almost finished, and that I'm just doing the weapons and the backpack to add the final finishing touches. And when you're done with it, go take some nice pictures with your new Gundam figure. You can see I'm super proud. She's given a thumbs up in this one, which I really love. And in this one, she's got a bit of a girly pose. And this is the final product. You can see on the side there's still extra hands, and then there's also extra blades. So, for example, there is the thumbs up, closed fist, and open fist. And there's also 2 different blades, so there's the heat blade and just the normal blade. And with the weapons, usually you can take out the pieces, so I'm going to replace the red with a normal blade. and you can just put that right back on. I'm struggling a bit, but that's not the point. Also, you can see my bandaged finger, so that should serve as a testament to be very, very careful with razor blades. It was a pretty deep cut, actually. Sometimes gunplas have loose parts, so over here at the leg, it was actually a pretty loose joint. So a trick that I use is that I cover the joint with tape to make it thicker, and then I place the leg back on, and it was pretty much fixed. Everything was tighter and it stays in. Sometimes the parts need to be super glued also, but I stress that you are also very, very careful when you're super gluing, because you do not want to super glue any points of articulation. On that same note though, super glue could also be used to thicken joints. So cover a joint with super glue, let it dry, and then you can put the joint in. But you should be very, very careful with that method. That's why I prefer to use tape. Lastly, I'd like to explain that sometimes in your Gundam kit there are extra parts, but as long as that part does not show up in the manual, you can throw those extra parts away. Apart from posing and placing your Gunpla down somewhere safe, you're finally finished with making your Gunpla. Well, they're based off of the mechas from the Gundam anime. Well, now that you have it, you can finally open it from the box. Come on. And the runners. These little plastic things, I'll further explain. Body, okay. I'm definitely going to be using a separate audio recording for this. Sometimes there are different... Blender. Sometimes there are different... Oh!